Welcome to the second hour of Mind Shifters Radio. Today is Wednesday, August the 25th, 2021, and our call-in number is 563-999-3581, and press 1, and that puts you into queue to talk to us. We'd love to hear your comments and questions, because that makes this your show. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, dear heart, and welcome, everybody. Hopefully I'm going to sound a little better today. I'm using Jeannie's phone, and I've tried a couple different headsets to get a better sound on my phone, and who knows, I may need to just go get another one. In any event, we're delighted that you're here. Delighted we get to be part of this conversation with you and to share the insights and the understanding, as Dr. Tim was talking about them, looking to function truly in the world as the presence of active love and to garner the benefits of that process. Our reading from Why Is This Happening to Me Again is on page, if you're following along with us, 104. We're still on the chapter on the body has a mind of its own. And when you realize that the mind works by the law of resonance, and when you can't handle what comes up, what resonates within you, that's when it becomes time for people to get vicious and leave and depart and make all kinds of excuses for how it's somebody else's fault. And this body's mind is a master at lying to us and a master at hiding from us. So, in the way that things hide from us is that we think or we speak as though somebody else is the cause of what's moving inside of us. And when I think or speak as though someone else is the cause of what's moving in me, in order to believe that lie, I have to dissociate from the actual cause of what's moving in me. And first century Aramaic forgiveness is one of the most profound ways to bypass that system of projection and externalization and get back to the truth of who we are. Get out of the body's mind and move into the true mind. And so that's what we're here to do. That's what we're here to support. And we're having a conversation with a character named Richard, who has been looking at this idea, starting to step back from his mind, become the thinker apart from the thought, the feeler apart from the feelings, the actor apart from the actions. And I asked him the question of, Richard, have you ever done anything you did not want to do? Unfortunately, he says, more often than I care to admit. Why? There was a moment of hesitation before he spoke. Fear, I guess. I didn't know any better, or maybe anger. A number of reasons, I suppose. And then I offer him the thought, the only reason we ever do anything is because we have a reality in our minds that guides us to do that particular form of behavior. As a young boy with limited realities in his mind might smash a valued antique, a young boy with limited realities in his mind might smash a valued antique. Is the child destructive? No, he simply does not have the realities in his mind to guide him into what we consider the proper handling of something fragile. Richard thought for a moment and made an insightful observation. You mean, if he were told repeatedly, as a result of his not knowing how to handle something, that he was bad and destructive, those words might build a reality into his mind? My God, that reality might actually drive him for his whole life. And my next thought I'm going to offer to him, and we'll do that tomorrow, is that that's where forgiveness comes in. Because if we have brain cells for non-functional behavior, that is, for doing behaviors out of hostility or fear, and those behaviors are always non-functional, in terms of the truth of what's really possible. And so restoring oneself to the truth of who we are becomes key and building the brain cells into carbon-based memory, into the body's mind for how it is we want to act and how it is we want to function. Lots of people want to function a certain way, but in the middle of the muddle, when the stress is up and the chips are down, and something based in hostility or fear is moving, then they have no choice. Whatever's in brain cells takes over. So this idea of brain cells is huge. And until we recognize that our behavior is driven by the content of the brain cells in our minds, and desired behaviors are not available because they're not in brain cells, or desired understanding. We live in this world of actuality, and what we're looking to do with this work, you go back to Yeshua 2,000 years ago, and he says his work is for those who have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. I think we can fairly safely assume most everybody in his audience had what we call physical eyes and ears. So he wasn't talking about that. What he was saying is, you've got to have the brain cells for the meanings that he's proposing. Now, let's use a comparison. Let's imagine we take a child of 5 and we set them in a room with a university professor that has a blackboard just filled with all kinds of advanced mathematics, like postgraduate level mathematics. The child of 5 is going to sit there along with the mathematics professor, and they're each going to look at the same actuality, the same writing on the board. One of them will have meanings that make sense of what's written on the board. One of them will look at it and go, well, that's just all gobbledygook. It's interesting, a lot of people talk about spiritual teachings, and because they have no brain cells, they look at it and they go, oh, that's all gobbledygook. They're like the 5-year-old having no brain cells, don't recognize the viability of what's there. The child sitting in the math classroom with the postgraduate professor with a board full of math equations and numbers would say, that makes no sense. That means nothing. The same way, and that would just be a reflection of the child's not having the brain cells, being ignorant of the meaning of those symbols on the board. In exactly the same way, if one without the brain cells, or one who's been abused around spiritual teachings, looks at spiritual teachings, they go into rage and rejection and, the whole atheist game. Like, there's nothing to that. And it's the reflection either of the 5-year-old's ignorance with no brain cells, or a reflection of the pain held in one's carbon-based memory in the body's mind in regard to spiritual teachings. And, everybody wants the postgraduate brain cells for living life and spiritual teachings. Everybody. And most, when they're first introduced, are like the child of 5, and they say, I have $5 in 5 minutes. I want to know what everything on that board means. Well, guess what? That child of 5 is going to go through his grade school teaching. He's going to go to middle school. He's going to go to high school. He's going to go to college. And guess what that's all about? That's all about building brain cells. And then when he gets into the postgraduate course with the professor, he stands shoulder to shoulder with the professor saying, oh, here's what that equation means. Click, 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 click. Goes through 6 blackboards in 10 minutes and explains it all. How does he do that? He's got the brain cells. Without the brain cells, ridiculous. You want a postgraduate work in spirituality? A postgraduate degree in spirituality? Well, it's probably not going to come today, nor tomorrow, nor next week, nor as you finish your grade school training, or your middle school training, or your high school training, or your college training. It's going to come when you've gone through the work that it takes to understand what all of that means. And we're told by Yeshua 2,000 years ago that there is a teacher inside of us that will give that all to us. Now, of course, you've got to make yourself available. Oh, well, Michael, I have a job, and I have to earn money, and I got to go out and drink on Friday evening, and I got to play, and, my weekend's tied up on the boat, and, Tuesday night I've got this girlfriend, and Thursday night I've got that girlfriend, and, I want that postgraduate degree. I want those brain cells. Oh, you're telling me that, like the 5-year-old in the postgraduate math class, I'm going to have to do the work of building the brain cells? It's going to take time. It's going to take work. It's going to take engagement. Yeah, that's what I'm telling you. And then when you look at something in the actuality, having the brain cells for it, it will make sense for you. If you're too busy, it'll probably never make sense. Just like the kid who in middle school or grade school at 5, I can remember working with a young man who, when he was 13, he started to drink and drug. And the time that he showed up at Heartland, he was in his early 40s. And for the time he was about 13, he'd never drawn a sober, straight breath. Now, if you're so busy that you're not going to take the time to do what it takes to build the brain cells, to engage, then be gentle with yourself when you live in ignorance and you don't know what's going on and you don't see and you don't understand what something means. Yeshua, again, 2,000 years ago, for those who having eyes do not see, and those that having ears do not perceive. The only way the post-grad math work is going to make sense is if that kid does the work. And it's going to take him over a decade. My offering is, with this work, when people first are engaged, they go, oh, yeah, this is great. I understand. This is great. If they engage, like we would say to that kid, you're going to have to do your grade school, you're going to do your middle school, you're going to do high school, you're going to do college, and then you get into postgrad. You're going to have to do that. The average person says, yeah, this is great, man, I want it. It's going to take them somewhere between 5 and 10 years to build the brain cells, to change the body's mind, carbon-based memory, from its brainwashed condition of hostility and fear into a place where love can actually exist in truth. The fact of being a human being called love can truly exist in the mind and can truly fuel the mind and physiology. Now, there aren't too many places you can go and do that level of work. The reason we do this show, 5 days a week, an hour a day, is so that people have access to a conversation that builds the brain cells for a different way to see and understand and comprehend. The child looks at that board and goes, that just makes no sense whatsoever. Most people look at the conflicts in their lives. They look at the traumas in their lives. They look at their upbringing, and they look at the whole thing, and they just say, that makes no sense. Oh, believe me, it makes total, complete, and perfect sense if you have the brain cells. We're being prepared. Each person is going to ultimately have to do their own process work. And we're here to support people stepping into that and building the brain cells for a different way to live. So I hope that fits and makes sense for you. And Miss Jeannie, do we have anybody in the phone queue with a hand up? Anything happening in the chat room? Hello, Jeannie.
I'm here.
Okay.
No, I don't believe so. Susan's hand's up, but I think it's left over from when she was talking to Dr. Tim. But I did get an email from someone. Okay. Miss Susan, did you raise your hand?
Hey, hi, guys.
Hey there, young lady.
Hi, I didn't press one again. I'm enjoying listening. This is great. Yeah. But now that I'm on, I wanted to recommend a podcast by Byron Katie. It's about whether to have a vaccination or not. And she gives a wonderful interview with a man from Australia who's part of an anti-vax community there. And he was, are you hearing all right?
You're loud and clear.
Okay. A man came on for an interview with her who was struggling because he didn't want to have the vaccine. And she takes him through her 4 questions, and how she does it is just gorgeous. Very gentle, very good. So it's a podcast. If you just have podcasts on your iPhone, you can find it. Byron Katie. It's called Number 17, Vaccine or Not Vaccine or whatever, something like that. It's probably fairly recent. But it really was just a wonderful interview. That was what my worksheets have been about. We're having a lot of argument here in my very, very split state of Pennsylvania, and a lot of arguing and people mad about mandates for masks and so forth. And I was letting it get to me, and this helped a lot. So
cool. Well, my offering would be that the person who's mad about mandates for masks is lying to themselves. They're lying to everybody else. They're not mad about a mandate for masks. They're mad because there's man in them, and they can use masks or a glass of milk or the latest movie or the latest political. They can use anything to pretend to be mad about. So
true. That is so true. So anyway, that's my little...
I'll do a search for that and have a look at it. Yeah. Thank you. Number 17. Cool.
Yeah. I've only listened to half. You get the gist, and I don't know what the second half was about, but she had pretty much gone through her 4 steps with him. It's a long podcast, and I only heard half. But the first half will do the trick for anybody who's finding themselves worked up about that issue.
Cool.
From whichever side they're on. It's just great. Yeah.
And again, I'll offer that nobody has ever been worked up about that issue. People are out there saying, I'm worked up about the political scene. I'm worked up about the vaccines. I'm worked up about the masks. No, you're just worked up. And when you choose to remove the brain cells that come from being worked up, and when you start to look at the dynamic of your power person that probably was worked up seemingly about a lot of things, then you get to start to forgive that dynamic from your mind. You get free of it and move on and move forward.
Good. Yeah. True. Yeah. All right, people. We'll carry on.
Well, give Tim a hug for us.
I will. Thanks. He did.
All right.
We had our Zoom Mind Shifter group today.
Tell us about it.
And it's really going well. It's a very small group. We had only 4 of us on, including Tim and me. In other words, guests. But Tim did a worksheet, and one person did a worksheet, and both were just wonderful pieces of work. So the tools are going out, and I should tell you that I've been invited to speak about the tools, about the Mind Shifter, but mainly the worksheet, to a group called Healing Grove. It's a community of healers, functional medical people, and therapists and so forth in this area, Pennsylvania, although since it's on Zoom and virtual, it's people coming from all over the world.
Sweet.
But, yeah, I'm going to be able to present the worksheet and maybe even do one with one of the listeners on the Zoom thing. And I'm certainly going to make a pitch for the radio show and all the other tools and your and Dr. Tim's websites and all the stuff you offer.
Awesome. Well, let us know when the thing is going to be, and maybe we can make the space to join you on it.
You would have to sign up ahead of time. It's some sort of a membership thing, and it's part of a thing that costs, and I'm getting in free because I'm a speaker. So it's not inexpensive. So if there's a recording of it. Well,
yeah, maybe you could let them know that you can bring an assistant speaker along with you.
That's an idea.
It's an idea.
Yeah, well.
Think about it and let me know.
Okay, I will. Thanks, Michael.
Cool. Well, that's awesome. Yeah. Congratulations. Expanding.
Well, I turned them down last year, and I turned them down this year, and then I thought, what am I thinking they're asking? I thought they were asking me to somehow present myself as an enlightened person, and I didn't find that appealing at all. But then I thought, wait a minute. I can present the tools. And that made it seem very different and very appealing.
Sweet. Well, if there's any room for an assistant speaker, let me know, and I will be there with bells on.
Okay, Michael. That's great.
Cool.
I will ask.
Sweet. I would love to be your assistant. That would be fun.
Well, I'd be tempted to turn it over to you, so...
if it works out, maybe we could do some interplay.
Yeah. All right. Okay, Michael. Well, that's a lovely idea.
All right. Well, anything else on your mind for today?
Well, the only thing that pops to my mind is maybe you should be a speaker. Maybe you yourself, or Jeannie, or Dr. Tim.
Well, maybe all three of us.
Well, let me talk
to
her about it. Okay.
We could each present different aspects. You know, if you do a presentation, and then maybe rouse some questions, and I could come in and do a presentation based in the worksheet. Dr. Tim could do something from his psychology point of view with it for these medical professionals, and Jeannie, working with Women Healing Women, could address the aspects of women's issues with it. And wow, that would be awesome.
All right.
Who knows what doors open at that point?
This. These are free things.
That's okay.
You understand?
I don't care.
Okay, good.
I don't care.
Yeah, I don't
That's
care
fine.
either. I just want to get the stuff out there.
Exactly. Sweet. Well, keep us posted.
All right, I will. Thanks for the idea. Great idea.
Okay. All right. Love and blessings.
Thanks. You too.
Okay. So cool. You never know where the next piece of growth for the work's going to come from. So, Miss Jeannie.
There is no other hands up and no questions in the chat room. So I did get an email from a young lady, and I answered her by another email, but I told her that I would also bring it up on the show today, and then she could go back and listen to the archives if she wasn't able to be with us live. And it's from a young lady named Christy, or Kirsty, and she says, "Thank you so much for your sharings and wisdom. I'm deeply grateful for your understanding. I would like to find out more information on Rukkadekucha and wonder if you could point me in the right direction." So if you would like to address Rukkadekucha.
Sure. That's a big idea that, there are no words in the English language that represent what the words Rukkadekucha in Aramaic represent. There just isn't such a thing. So it's a significant, it's a paragraph to just, define the word. There is the words Rukkadekucha from Aramaic have been translated by the Greeks, and then from the Greeks to the Old English to modern English. And the concept that shows up in the modern scriptures that represents, theoretically represents, but it represents the concept of Rukkadekucha about as accurately as pardoning people for their offenses represents forgiveness. I mean, it's just so far out in the left field. So the words that the Greeks used that show up in the English language are Holy Spirit. But there's no such thing as a disembodied spirit being and the Aramaic idea of Ruka Tekucha. Ruka, my pronunciation is very good.
Michael, before you go further, you're a little hard, Michael, you're hard to understand. Pull your microphone differently before you go into a great long...
Is that better?
Okay, awesome. Yes.
Is that better? Okay.
Yes.
So, in Aramaic, Ruka is a word that represents the elemental forces. Earth, air, fire, water are all the elements, the elemental forces. And then there's one that the Aramaic speaks of as being designed specifically for humans, and it's Ruka Tekucha. So if we were going to break that idea down from the Aramaic into English concepts or words that represent English concepts, here's what we'd have. A feminine elemental force in us. In Aramaic, the words are gendered, and it's somewhat like in the French language, we have L-A and L-E to represent feminine and masculine. So certain words are gendered feminine, and certain words are gendered masculine and indicated by L-E or L-A in French. Well, in the same way, the word Ruka Tekucha is gendered feminine. So it's this feminine elemental force inside of us, not some disembodied spirit being, but an elemental force that has two main functions. One, it is to undo the effects of our errors. In other words, to carry out the process of forgiveness, to loosen, to untie, to let loose the energetic patterns that have come from error, whether it's in our physiology, our emotions, our mental processes, or the external world. So here's a feminine elemental force inside of us that if we invite it into activity, now each person has free will. You can ignore, deny, shut down that force, and have no conscious relationship with it. But if you invite it into activity, one, it will undo the effects of your errors, and two, it will directly teach you the truth. Now, humans want to be followed. Humans want, you got to come to me for the truth. That seems to be a pretty common thing. I am the guru. I am the prophet. It's like, no. The guru, the prophet, the teacher is inside of you. All you need to do is uncover her. And you uncover her, one, by inviting her into activity and standing in willingness to have those energetic patterns that never belonged in a human life removed. And that might look like, a deeply, deeply dark and dramatically painful experience that went on in your bloodline 5 generations ago, that still lies within your genes, that's producing this dark, dangerous, and painful experience today. Now, those things develop via free will. And if we want to hold on to those deep, dark things, we get to hold on to them. But if you're willing and you invite that elemental force into activity, literally the energetic patterns will begin to be undone. Undoes the effects of your errors. And that would look like, let's take an extreme case of it. There's somebody that, I interacted with 30 years ago and we had a big trauma, and I'm still carrying that trauma around. and I touch it, and they're still carrying that trauma around, and every time they think of me, they send hate, and every time I think of them, I send hate. And now I step into the space where, okay, I'm willing to have my hate forgiven. And I'm willing to invite that elemental force into activity to undo that. Then that hate energy is going to become loosed. It's going to become, it's going to move in the direction of becoming undone in me. And since one of the effects of my errors from 30 years ago is this person who's traumatized every time they think of me, is literally that trauma energy in them is going to be loosed and start to be undone. So it does the effects of errors. And then, when we're willing, when we're not standing in a place of, well, I have to know everything and I have to be right about everything, when we're willing to be taught the truth, when there's an opening for it, then she's going to show us exactly how truth fits into each circumstance of our lives. So that's the idea of Ruka Takucha. I'd like to offer an example. You know, Jeannie and I shared that we've been doing some deep work, you know, re-upped by our still point breathing session this past weekend. And we were doing, you know, we shared a little bit yesterday about that session that we both were breathing through. And one of the things that was going on for me was dealing with integrity in intimate relationships, looking at some past dynamics and moving through them, and understanding, wanting to be taught the impact on physiology of being out of alignment with integrity. And so what I was shown was that from my own personal early life, the places where, you know, I was brought up in the standard culture, you know, you look but you don't touch, or well, maybe even touch, well, you know, it's okay. And, you know, and I've come to understand in the last 20 years that thank you very much, no, don't even want to look. Thank you very much, no interest in touching. Because not being in full integrity within your intimate relationships brings a disintegrative energy into tissue. And what I was shown was injury done to the left side of my own heart from those times where I just didn't know any better. You know, I was following the cultural norms, which now I look at and I go, that was just so freaking insane. But that was the norm. And so undoing the effects of the errors, I was taught, I mean, really clearly, the power and the blessing of being in full integrity, and then taught what my lack of integrity had done to my own physiology. And I literally was able to see into my own physical heart and how the left side of my heart had been damaged by that. And as I breathed through that, as Jeannie held the space, I was able to move through and literally undo, and my mind gave me some pretty dramatic images of the damage that had been done, the darkness of that lack of integrity. And the restoration, the rebuilding of that part of my structure. And it was interesting because through our whole breathing session, I had been cold, especially my feet. And we were right near the end of the still point session when I was taught that the importance of integrity in intimate relationships, where I comprehended on still another level, and literally had a representation of, sort of a mechanically deformed and traumatized tissue, and was able to go in and just watch that be restructured. I mean, literally right on the spot, be rebuilt. So that would be the kind of impact that when we really, truly, and of course, like I said in the early part of the workshop, the child of 5 sitting in the classroom with the postgraduate math professor isn't going to have a clue how to follow any instructions given. It takes time to build those brain cells, and if you look at the commitment, it's way back 30 years ago that I was teaching in healing through relationships and realizing that it was in the interaction in our relationships that healing occurred. And, the line was put in the commitment 20 plus years ago, and the line is, I'm here for you and with you. So I had those brain cells, have been building those brain cells, been working in that direction 20 years ago. But it was only 2 nights ago that I really got what it physically meant, where I had the brain cells and I was available to be taught on the deepest level and available for that level of tissue restructuring from the damage that I'd done through my ignorance. So that's the idea of Ruka Dekucha, that there is this emanation from the Creator designed specifically for humans. And when welcomed and when invited into activity, to the degree that we have the brain cells and we're ready and we're willing, we will, 1, be taught the truth, and 2, have the impact and the effects of our errors undone energetically. So, Jeannie, from your reading of the inquiry in the email, does that adequately cover the topic, or is there something else that we could add there?
I think it does. I went on not knowing whether she was on the show real often or whether it was just a website or whatever, and whether she had, the knowledge of what the forgiveness process was. I went on and explained, the worksheet, how you look at your trigger and the event and your emotions and thoughts, and then the goal, and I explained to her how the goal worked, and then that you had to ask Ruka to, once you canceled the goal, then you had to request Ruka to come into activity and help you release it. You had to be willing to let it go first, and then ask her to help you remove it. And so I explained a little bit on that part of it, and how we are creators. And so maybe talk a little bit. Nobody's got a hand up. We've got 21 minutes. Maybe talk a little bit on the goal, and that, I explained to her there was nothing wrong with the goal, that if we're creators and there's something we want, why haven't we created it? And that the forgiveness process was letting go of that goal so we could see what part was keeping us from our creation, our conscious creation.
Right. Cool. So Jeannie says, and it's probably one of the greatest atrocities that's been done to us as human beings down through the ages, and we've bought into it, is that we've had hidden from us the fact that we are by nature creators. When I realize that I'm a creator, then I realize that everything that shows up in my life is a reflection of my creative process. If there are things showing up in my life that I say, well, I sure didn't ask for this, then I've hidden a part of my mind from myself where my asking has been. And so the willingness to uncover the parts of the mind, you could say, you run across a particular experience once and it happens and it's, it's gone. And, that was a fluke. That was just an accident of nature. But when you're in one of those why is this happening to me again experiences. It's like, gee, it happened here, it happened here, it happened here, it went there. I left town, I went to the other side of the country, and it happened again. Then you got to start to go, what's the part of me involved in this? And then the willingness to have that part be uncovered and undone. And it takes ownership, really, truly taking ownership of the results you create in your life. And then to recognize that when you're in some form of hostility or fear, that hostility or fear is an indicator that there is something in your structure that doesn't belong in your structure, and that which is in your structure is part and parcel of your creative process. And what I want to do is uncover and clean up that part of my mind. And the tool for doing that is the tool of forgiveness. And so when I look at a particular circumstance or situation that's going on in my life, and I realize I've been through it, 87 different times with 42 different people, then I want the approach from the first century Aramaic process of forgiveness for cleaning that up is to look at each time that's happened in my life, what is the result, what is the outcome that I wanted there? And in particular, this latest one, is there a specific outcome that I wanted? And by acknowledging and looking for that outcome, I've determined what's driving my perceptual mind. The perceptual mind is driven by goals. You'll notice that, unless you're just a generally really miserable person, that you're pretty much happy with virtually everybody who's being reasonable with you and fulfilling the goals you hold for them. And notice that the people who are even closest to you, when they're not fulfilling your goals, you can puke on them in a heartbeat. Somebody you say, I deeply, 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 deeply cherish you and want to be there for you and support you and nurture you. And just watch the simplest thing that they don't do that you want them to do. And take a look at how quickly you're willing to puke on them. How willing you are to degrade them or criticize them or use a sharp tone with them. Now, recognize whenever that happens, you're now probably engaged in a power person dynamic. And the solution to that is you look at what's the goal? What is it you wanted from them? And then in the Aramaic language, the word forgive is shabag, and it literally translates to cancel. Now, I have a perfectly good goal. I want this person to, be reasonable with me. That's a reasonable goal. So, they're being unreasonable, and I am so enraged. Do you really think you're enraged because they're unreasonable? And how does it look like your life that every time you perceive someone as being unreasonable to you, you go into rage? That person has a problem with rage, and they want to be about forgiving their rage. How do you do that? Well, there's dissociated content in the mind, content that I've hidden from myself. And when someone violates my goal, then whatever's in that part of my mind is going to tend to surface. The shortcut way to accessing and uncovering what's creating uncovering the part of my mind that's hidden, that's repeatedly creating the result that I don't like, is I cancel the goal that I hold in that situation. Now, I'm not canceling the goal because I don't want this thing that I want. Of course I want it. I'm not canceling it because it's a bad goal or there's something wrong with it. I'm canceling it because every time I load that goal in my mind, it tends to bring forward this hostility-based content in my mind. So when I cancel the goal, the perception that my mind is generating out of that hidden content collapses. Now, what's the result? What's the perception in that moment? Well, I'm really angry with them because they aren't being reasonable with me. So when I cancel my goal, the perceptual construct out of my mind about people not being reasonable with me collapses. And now I've dropped right into that part of my mind where the original event occurred, that in which I accumulated all this hostility and pain around what I consider to be unreasonable people. So when I cancel the goal, that perception collapses in on its own root, and I now have access to the root, the underlying energetic dynamic behind this upset when people don't act reasonably. So when I cancel the goal, the perception collapses in on itself, and that's what gives me access to what's in the footprint of that pained perceptual construct. And when I have access to the footprint of that pained perceptual construct, when that part of my mind is open, that's when this power that we call Ruka Dakudsha can move into high-speed, fast-forward activity and move mountains of energy and information. I mean, I can't tell you how many times over the years I've had somebody living in their why is this happening to me again experience, and they've been through it 100, 200, 300 times. And now, in the middle of the latest muddle, they cancel the goal for this person to be reasonable, and they drop into the real underlying cause of their pain and trauma. And when you drop directly into that in the presence of active love, then whatever that is errant content, begins its dissolution. The dissolution of that content is called forgiveness. It happens when I look at any given situation and the goal that I hold in that situation, and I cancel the goal for that goal to be accomplished by them or by myself or whoever the object of my attention is. And that's the power that Ruka Dakudsha has in assisting in removing those hidden dynamics. And so if that makes sense, awesome. If anybody has a question, we've got about 10 minutes left. Any other thoughts, Jeannie, that you think might be supportive of the person who was asking the question initially?
That was excellent. I didn't go into quite that detail, so that helped tremendously. And I hope that she'll call in. I gave her, the information and the times and everything and told her we were here to support her, so hopefully she'll call in sometime. Yeah. And there's a couple numbers that show up on the switchboard regularly that I'm not sure of the number. They're people that I don't have in my phone, and love to hear from them and hear what's going on for them and for them to share, and if there's anything we can do to support them. That would be wonderful. You just press 1, and that lifts a little hand, and we know you want to talk. We have a good group on the switchboard today.
Great. So if you're out there in listener land, and Jeannie was sharing that there was someone whose number has been coming up for a long time, but not someone we've ever heard of from, we'd love to say hello. Push 1 and just say hello. Let us know who you are. And if you want to remain anonymous, that's okay. Give us a phony name. It doesn't matter. Just kind of tap in and let us know how the show's impacting you. We appreciate each listener and love to connect directly and personally. And we're here to hold the space. And we've got about 8 minutes left. So if you're out there in this land, if you're one of those stations where we can't see you in our control panel, the call-in number to listen to the show directly on your phone is 563-999-3581. You just call that number. You'll be listening to the show. And then if you push 1, we'll be having a conversation. So how can we support you? What's on your mind? 563-999-3581. And perhaps, Miss Jeannie, if we have no conversation to be had, it's about 9 minutes now. If nobody has a question or a thought for us, then maybe it's time to want to do some of these other projects that we have and let the show go for today. What do you think?
Well,
if you're out there in this land, push 1. Let's have a conversation. I'd rather do that, but...
Yep. Oh, hand went up. Area code 808. Yeah, 808. You're on the air.
Hi, you guys.
Hey there, young lady. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really curious about this person, this phone number that has been on the list all this time, but we don't know who this person is.
Well,
so that's kind of a fascinating
point, or not.
Yeah. I hope we hear from him. Yeah. So that's all I had to say. Just wanted to encourage whoever it is that's listening to participate, because it's such it's a wonderful leap forward in consciousness to be able to speak your truth into the listening on this program. It's a life-changing experience. So, just call to encourage whoever it is to share with us.
Cool.
And I giggle because I'm happy. I giggle because I'm a 78-year-old, 5-year-old happy.
There you go. Go for it.
And that's because Rukadukucha has cleansed so many, countless patterns of pain and suffering and hostility and rage from my entire psyche, from every cell of my body. And the possibility of healing that's available through this work is just beyond comprehension. So I just wanted to share that.
Sweet. That's awesome. Yeah. I'm with you 100%.
Okay.
Cool.
It's beautiful, sunshiny morning here in Maui. Okay, nice. Blessings to everyone. Aloha.
Aloha. Okay, well, we've got about 7 minutes left. If you're out there in listener land, push 1. Let's have a conversation. No more questions from anybody or thoughts or anything you share. But we'll just say that if you're not using... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you were talking about the worksheet and canceling the goal and everything, and the more specific you are with your goal, a lot of people maybe doing the worksheet on somebody being, kind to them, and then they turn up with a goal that they want the whole world to be nice or something like that. But it's real important to be very specific with each worksheet. what goal you're wanting in that specific incident.
Yes, and often a worksheet where somebody, say, does a goal, cancels a goal where they want people to be nice to them, that may be the surface mind's goal, but underlying it, the real goal that will ultimately need to be faced is, I want, decency from people, or I want to be recognized by people. So that may be the underlying motivation, and oftentimes goals are let go of layer by layer by layer. So, good point. Specifics. All right, well, if there's nobody else with a question or thought for us, I'll just say that, if you're not using the forgiveness process at this moment, you can go to our website, whyagain.org, AGAIN.org, why again. And in the upper left-hand corner, there's a button that says Start Here. Click it, and it'll walk you through dozens of hours of introduction, building brain cells for this work. You can also go to your app store on your phone, type in the word Heartland, Heartland, all one word, Aramaic, Aramaic, forgiveness. When you type that in, you'll be looking at the world's first forgiveness app, the world's only forgiveness app. Take it, put it to work. It's awesome. And we invite you to create the best year yet of your eternal life. That's also an awesome gift to give the world. It's a gift the world needs. It's a gift you can give. And we're here to support you in doing it. Blessings. Bye-bye.